Hello everyone, my name is James and I have high-functioning autism. I often post videos on this channel about autism and how a person can reach a higher potential in regards to overall self-satisfaction and happiness. If you like these kind of topics, please subscribe. If you already have, thank you very much for subscribing, as your support can help benefit everyone. Okay, well, let's get started. How I knew I had autism before I even knew what it was. It is common for people to believe that many individuals on the autism spectrum have no idea what this condition is, and many parents are afraid to disclose their diagnosis because they aren't sure how they are going to react or if it will drastically change their life. Well, I want to clear this misconception, as many people I know who have ASD, me included, already knew that their life was different. When I was a kid, I always knew I was different. I knew I struggled with things that were different than my peers. I knew I also had gifts that were very different than others. Sometimes this was often confusing, but I knew it was something. To make matters worse, I grew up in the late 80s when high-functioning autism, or Asperger's, wasn't a known thing, and this was comforting to me when I found out that I had Asperger's or high-functioning autism when I was an adolescent in the late 90s. With that said, I will talk about the different ways I noticed that I knew I had autism before I even knew it was. Number one, people seemed to treat me differently. When I was a kid, I noticed family members, siblings, and other peers treated me different, and I never understood why. I used to take it personally. I also noticed I went to different schools than my sister did before I went to first grade. Once I was in grade school, I had a full-time aide. That also made me feel like I was treated differently. Number two, I knew my interests were different compared to others. When I was a kid, other boys my age liked baseball cards, G.I. Joes, or action figures. However, I liked riding my bike across town and building stuff out of blocks and Legos. Kids enjoyed sports like basketball, but I didn't find it interesting at all. When I saw baseball games on TV, I used to think everyone was trapped inside the stadium and was stuck in there for the rest of their lives. I was more interested in vast things, like traveling, looking at railroads, or riding trains. I used to be obsessed with trains when I was a kid. When I was 4 to 5 years old, I used to run around the house pretending I was a train and wished I could be a living one like I saw in storybooks. I used to build elaborate train cities with Brio train sets all over the living room and drew them all the time too. I was also obsessed with power lines. I used to love seeing power lines whenever I drove around the countryside. I used to draw them non-stop and even tried to build them in my mom's front and backyard when I was 6. I used to build power lines using 2x4s and small trees that I dragged out of the woods. My poor mom would trip over all the holes I dug. I would ask for electrical appliances for my birthday. I would also ask for electrical appliances for Christmas and my birthday. Number 3, I felt like I experienced things that other people didn't. I felt like my overall sensory processing and how I interpreted the environment was different than others. I often wondered if people saw things the same way. Power lines used to scare me as a kid before I got interested in them because I saw things on them that looked really intense to me, and I wasn't sure if other people noticed. Everything looked alive to me, even inanimate objects like trains, cars, and power lines. I not only heard sounds, but saw them in pictures, and every picture I saw had its own sound too. I wasn't sure if that was something that other people experienced too. Number 4, I often imagined things and created my own world to immerse myself into. Pretending was almost always a part of my everyday life. I always used my imagination when I played at school, with my toys, or when I rode my bike. I liked pretending I was a train or seeing a bunch of power lines. When I ate lunch at school, I used to pretend everything on the table was part of a big giant city. Number 5, I was sensitive. I was very sensitive to certain things when I was a kid. Clothes used to bother me a lot. I couldn't wear clothes with tags, buttons, zippers, or pockets. If I did, I used to tug and chew and pull at them all day, and it was embarrassing. However, as embarrassing as it was, I couldn't ignore the texture, kind of like being tickled. I noticed other people didn't get bothered by clothes like I did, and it made me feel sad. Loud noises and sounds used to bother me too. I especially hated sudden loud noises, and I used to hate fire alarms, and I would avoid going to the basement because I was afraid the furnace would turn on and startle me. I noticed other people didn't seem to worry about such things though. Number 6, I was obsessive compulsive. I always wanted to line things up in my room, and everything had to go in its right spot, or else I would experience anxiety. I always kept the door in my room open at a certain angle. When I went to bed, I had to turn off the television and every single light in the house. I didn't like it when people ran the dishwasher or watched the television when I was in bed, or else I would tell them to turn it off or force myself to stay awake and not sleep. Number 7, my emotions were more intense. I often found when I got angry, my anger was quick and way more intense. I often worried a lot when I got upset, and it was hard for people to calm me down, and I often didn't like to be touched and preferred to be alone. When I was happy, I was extremely happy, but when I was sad, I almost felt suicidal, and when I was angry, I was often in rage. When I experienced negative emotions, I often felt it was as if the world was going to end, but when it passed, and it usually passed quickly, I completely felt fine after, as if nothing happened. Sometimes I would feel guilty for how I expressed my emotions. I didn't understand why others didn't feel the same way I did, and that made me know I was different. Number 8, it was harder for me to make friends. I always loved being around people and interacting with them, but I was very picky to be around with. If friends wanted to see me during a time I didn't want to, I was often rude and tried to run off from them. I feel guilty about it now, but I didn't understand the importance of socializing then until I got much older. Once I was in 8th grade, I found it was very hard to fit in. I attempted to fit in by trying to mimic their behaviors instead of being myself. I realized later that this is called masking. I also realized that masking can help you be successful at times, but it's better to take the mask off because it can make you feel depressed over time and not help you find the right people to build true relationships with. Number 9, I had tics and other quirky habits. When I was a kid, I used to do things to help soothe me, like suck my thumb, bite my nails, tap my leg, and I used to make squeaking noises. I stopped sucking my thumb and I outgrew the squeaking noises, but noticed tics were kind of a thing I always felt compelled to do, which I felt others often didn't do. All these things made me realize that there was something different about me. It is probably clear to you that I was not in denial that there was something way different with me, that I had some kind of condition that was screaming for a label or some kind of explanation. It was wonderful to finally find out it was high-functioning autism once I had testing done in 8th grade. It was also comforting to me to know that there was also other people with high-functioning autism too. If you know someone that you suspect might have it, like your child, don't assume that you might affect them in a negative way by telling them, because from my experience and from what I've heard from others' experiences, it is always helpful to know what their condition actually is. Tony Attwood says, it is like having a bunch of puzzle pieces you're struggling to put together and then suddenly seeing the picture on the box. While I hope you enjoyed this video, please be safe, healthy, make sure to social distance, and don't forget to love yourself. Thanks for watching.